You may potentially get another Social Security check this month in August of up to $800. Take a look at this article right here. Some Americans to receive rare second Social Security payment in August. And this is a rare occasion that is a result of a quirk in the system. So this check could be as high as $800. I'll let you know who's getting this check, when the check could come for you. Also, we're hearing the latest from Congress.
I guess then they were only talking about Social Security. Social Security was so important, we can't let it go broke. And they built up a surplus that we're still using of trillions and trillions of dollars. And
I'll play the full video clip of that and give you some other important updates as well. Before I dive into the main content, if you appreciate these Social Security updates, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Social Security updates. So some Americans to receive rare second Social Security payment in August. What is this? Especially if you already got one Social Security check in August, looks like you could get a second one. I'll let you know the reason why, who's getting it, when it'll come. But first, let's take a listen to what is going on in Congress. Then I'll go over this second payment in August.
Before I read my statement, I want to comment on what you said about Social Security and Medicare. And I'm not criticizing what you said. I'm going back to this comes up. Why come you guys can't do something about saving Social Security and Medicare? And I use history as an example. I always start out by saying, you know why nothing gets done in Washington, D.C. about Medicare and Social Security now? There's no Reagans and Tip O'Neills in this town anymore, because they found where we're going to be in 10 years on these two programs. They were right there in 1983 or 84 or whenever it was. And they raised taxes, they cut benefits, they changed formulas, and probably did a whole lot of other things that I don't remember. And they probably thought they were doing something for 20 years, I tell my constituents. But they did something for 50 years now if we still go till 2033. And they did it because they got together and said, you know, these programs are so, I guess then they were only talking about Social Security. Social Security was so important, we can't let it go broke. And they built up a surplus that we're still using of trillions and trillions of dollars, and that's going to be spent down by 2033. And if we don't do something, Social Security is going to be cut. It's going to be cut by, I guess, 23% or something. I guess I'm trying to, if there's any comment that I'm trying to make to you, it is that they didn't just raise taxes. They got together in a program that was bipartisan and probably passed the Senate 90-10, and I voted for it. Well, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for agreeing to my request for today's hearing with Director Swagel. It's been nearly 4 years since the CBO director last testified before the Senate Budget Committee on the nation's budget outlook. That's far too long for what's traditionally been a routine occurrence in the Budget Committee, particularly given the budget hole we've dug ourselves into. Federal Reserve Chairman Powell stated earlier this year that it's, quote, past time to get back to an adult conversation about elected officials, about getting the federal government back on a sustainable path, end of quotation. Today in the Budget Committee, that conversation is finally taking place. Director Swagel, thank you for coming. And I think you're going to tell each of us things that we'd rather not hear. But that's part and parcel of having what Powell called an adult conversation. So in moving beyond the partisan blame game of who's most at fault for our fiscal mess, President Biden tried to play this game at the recent presidential debate in an attempt to claim the mantle of fiscal responsibility. The reality is that President Biden has been dragged kicking and screaming to agree to even modest spending restraints as part of last year's Fiscal Responsibility Act. The fact is, our nation's debt will soon top $35 trillion. Next year's interest payments will exceed $1 trillion. And in 10 years, Social Security will go broke if we don't take bipartisan action to save it. I shouldn't say go broke because you're still going to have the revenue coming in that'll pay 77% of what benefits are today. CBO has warned Congress for decades that we'd face a fiscal reckoning due to ballooning mandatory spending. That reckoning is now at our doorstep. Absent action, rising debt will leave future generations facing higher interest rates, lower incomes, greater inflation, and the risk of full-blown fiscal crisis. Avoiding this requires a robust discussion of revenue and spending. As I've said in previous hearings, I have a record of going after genuine tax loopholes and wasteful carve-outs, and I'm open to reviewing tax subsidies. Now, a very good place to start is with those in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which CBO has said actually increases inflation. Ending the law's subsidies for luxury EVs and other regressive giveaways that have exploded in cost could net hundreds of billions of savings. Contrary to claims from the left, taxing the so-called rich is no silver bullet to our fiscal outlook. Even confiscating, I want to emphasize confiscating, not taxing, all income over $1 million wouldn't close our $2 trillion deficit. History proves that high tax rates fail to raise significant revenue. So I'm repeating something I said here a couple meetings ago. Taxpayers and workers and investors are smarter than we are in the United States Senate because we've had 93 marginal tax rates, then 70% marginal tax rates, 50%, 30%, back up to 40%, and you can go on and on. But regardless of the rate, we've brought in about the same amount of revenue as you can see from this chart. So we ought to stop to think that we senators are not smarter than the taxpayers. Rather than punish success, tax reform should focus on incentivizing work, savings, and investment. And that's exactly what Federal Reserve Chairman Volcker advised Congress in the 1980s at a similar time of large deficits and inflation. It was a recipe for success then and can be a recipe for success at this point. Most importantly, we must have a frank discussion about Washington's spending addiction. Whereas revenues are in line with historical levels, federal spending relative to the size of our economy is at heights previously reserved for wars and recessions, and still growing. Record spending is driving up unprecedented debt and deficits, which fuel more spending in the form of ballooning interest payments. Interest costs are rapidly becoming one of the largest line items in the federal budget. Next year, we'll see a new record as a share of gross share of our economy. No single chart can capture the size and scope of our fiscal mess, but the closest to it is a depiction of federal relative to the size, the debt relative to the size of our economy. We're on track to set a new record high by 2027, exceeding the World War II era record. While debt to GDP declined quickly after World War II, today our debt is infinitely projected to grow faster than the economy, And that's the definition of unsustainable. Yet President Biden continues to use his pen and phone to spend trillions, particularly on student loan bailouts. In these unprecedented fiscal times, that's the height of recklessness. We must stop digging ourselves into an ever deeper budget hole. And I think the budget agreement reached between McCarthy and Biden a year ago starts us down that track. Maybe not as aggressively as we should, but it's still a start. We must find common fiscal goals that can serve as a catalyst for that, continuing that bipartisan action. Can we agree to debt to GDP can't increase forever without consequences? Can we agree in a debt to GDP level that we mustn't cross? One last note. This week marks the 50th anniversary of the Congressional Budget Act, which created CBO and the Budget Committee. A lot has changed since 1974, from the way Congress operates to the size and scope of the federal budget. Updating the Budget Act for the fiscal 21 century is a shared goal worth continuing to work towards. So once again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this meeting, and welcome to you, Director Swagel.
What are your thoughts on the latest being said in Congress? Let me know down in the comments below. So some Americans to receive rare second Social Security payment in August. Here's why some Social Security recipients are going to receive 2 checks in August. So basically, because September 1st falls on a Sunday, SSI recipients will receive 2 payments in the month of August. The first check arrived on August 1st, and while the second check will come on Friday, August 30th. So roughly 7.4 million Americans collect SSI benefits. So this is if you are on SSI, you're going to get your September check in August. So it is kind of a quirk in the system. Not really sure why they don't just send it on that day anyway, but that's just how it works. So when it comes to how much you could get, looks like up to $900 for single, $1,400 for a couple when it comes to SSI. So whatever you got last month is what you're going to get this month, or actually whatever you got on August 1st is what you're going to get August 30th as well. So that is that, and that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully brighten your day a bit. Here's my daughter Belle's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Belle. This is the tip of the day. I want to tell you the one thing that you should do. So when you have to treat people equally, and make sure that if you treat people nice, they'll treat you back nice. But that might work. I don't know.
If you want to see what the new vice presidential candidate Tim Walz has said about Social Security, especially since he is a now running candidate for the presidential candidate Harris, to click this video over here to see where Tim Walz stands on Social Security. So click that video now and I'll see you in that video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.